Are you ready to confront pure terror? Turn on the lights. They won't save you. We're opening the doors to a world where darkness doesn't just blind, it consumes the soul. Here, in the darkest corners of the night, even your breath can become a harbinger of nightmares. Question everything you knew about safety and comfort. Are you prepared to hear eerie whispers from nowhere, invade your mind, and torment every thought? Leave your fears at the door, because what we show you will make them burst forth.
In the heart of a small, quiet town, where the streets were lined with neatly trimmed hedges and the air was filled with the scent of blooming lilacs, lived Sarah, a middle-aged music teacher. Her days unfolded like a well-worn sheet of music, predictable and comforting in their familiarity. Each morning, she would rise at dawn, her routine as steadfast as the rising sun. Clad in a simple cardigan and a long skirt, she would make her way to the kitchen, brewing a pot of coffee that filled her modest home with warmth. The sound of the kettle whistling was a pleasant prelude to her day, and as she sipped her coffee, she gazed out the window at the world awakening. Children scurried past on their way to school, their laughter ringing like chimes in the soft morning air. The town was idyllic, a picturesque setting where everyone knew one another, and life meandered at a slow, gentle pace. At school, Sarah's classroom was adorned with colorful posters of musical notes and instruments. The soft clatter of students settling in, the rustle of sheet music, and the gentle strumming of guitars filled the air, creating a comforting symphony. She found joy in guiding her students, nurturing their love for music, and sharing stories of composers long gone. Yet, beneath this harmonious exterior, a subtle unease began to nestle itself within her. On this particular day, as Sarah walked home, a strange sound pierced the tranquility of the evening. It was a soft, haunting melody that floated through the air, unlike any song she had heard before. The notes were dissonant, yet alluring, sending shivers down her spine. She quickened her pace, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting to find someone there. The feeling of being watched crept over her, prickling her skin like the chill of a distant storm. As she turned the corner, the melody faded, leaving behind an unsettling silence. The streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows that danced along the pavement. Sarah shook her head, dismissing the sensation as a figment of her imagination, a trick played by the twilight. Yet the unease lingered, hanging in the air like a foreboding note unresolved, whispering promises of darkness to come. As days turned into weeks, the strange melody began to weave itself into the fabric of Sarah's daily life. At first, it was merely a whisper at the edge of her consciousness, a fleeting sound that she could easily brush aside. Yet each subsequent encounter with the haunting note left a deeper imprint on her psyche. They were like shadows, lurking just out of sight, teasing her with their presence. During her morning routines, Sarah found herself straining to listen for the melody. It would come and go, sometimes lingering like a ghost in the corners of her mind, haunting her with its eerie allure. While driving to school, she would catch a few notes floating through her open window, sending a jolt of anxiety coursing through her. She dismissed it as the wind playing tricks, but a part of her knew there was something unnerving about the way the sound clung to her, refusing to be forgotten. At school, the melody seeped into her interactions with her students. While teaching, she would often find herself distracted, her thoughts drifting to those dissonant notes. Her students, usually lively and animated, seemed to notice her distraction. They would exchange puzzled glances, their laughter fading as they sensed the shift in her demeanor. Sarah would try to shake it off, forcing a smile and redirecting their attention, but the melody had woven itself into her thoughts, creating a discordant rhythm that disrupted her once peaceful classroom. Evenings turned into sleepless nights as the melody continued to play in her mind. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening intently for any sign of the song that seemed to echo in the stillness. Each time she thought she had imagined it away, the notes would return, more insistent than before, wrapping around her thoughts like a vine choking a tree. The sensation of dread grew, tightening around her chest like a vice. In her attempts to rationalize the sounds, she told herself it was stress or fatigue, the byproducts of her busy life. She sought solace in her favorite music, hoping to drown out the haunting notes with familiar harmonies. Yet, every melody she played only served to amplify her unease. The contrast between what she loved and what tormented her growing starker. The songs that once brought her joy now felt like a bittersweet reminder of her mounting anxiety. As the days wore on, Sarah found herself increasingly isolated. Conversations with friends felt superficial, the laughter around her a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside. The melody, ever present, began to morph into a companion of sorts, one that whispered dark secrets and twisted her perception of reality. The once vibrant colors of her life dulled under the weight of the song, leaving her feeling like a mere spectator in her own existence. She started to notice other oddities around her, shadows that flickered just out of sight, the feeling of being watched that clung to her like a heavy fog. These sensations compounded her unease, each day drawing her closer to the edge of an abyss she could not fully comprehend. The melody, once a distant echo, now felt like a haunting lullaby, luring her into a world she was terrified to enter. As the weeks dragged on, the melody grew more intense, weaving itself deeper into the fabric of Sarah's life. It seemed to resonate not only in her mind, but also through the very streets of her town. The once familiar corners now felt ominous, shadows stretching longer as dusk approached. Whispers of disquiet began to circulate among her neighbors. Strange occurrences, odd behavior, and unexplained disappearances cloaked the town in a thick veil of fear. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the melody was linked to these unsettling events. Every note echoed with an urgency that gnawed at her insides, compelling her to explore its origins. She began to venture out at odd hours, driven by a mixture of dread and curiosity. Each step felt like a descent into a labyrinth, with the haunting tune guiding her like a sinister compass. The streets that had once cradled her in safety now felt like a treacherous maze, each corner holding the potential for more terror. Her investigation began innocuously enough conversations with neighbors about the eerie happenings, piecing together fragments of information like a puzzle. Yet, as she delved deeper, she found herself increasingly isolated. Friends who once welcomed her company now shied away, their eyes shadowed with concern. The whispers of worry only fueled her paranoia, making her second-guess every interaction. Was she truly safe, or was she a target, marked by the melody that tethered her to an unseen fate? The townspeople's unease heightened Sarah's own. She noted the peculiar behavior of her students, who seemed distracted, wary, as if they too could hear the melody humming beneath their laughter. Their eyes would dart nervously and their voices hushed, as if they were sharing a secret that she was not privy to. This sense of collective anxiety made her feel like an outsider in her own life, the melody twisting her perception and deepening her dread. Sleep, once a refuge, became an elusive dream. Sarah would lie awake, the melody echoing in her mind, each note wrapping around her like a shroud. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage as if trying to break free from the grip of impending doom. The darkened corners of her room morphed into specters, shadows whispering her name in the dead of night. Every creak of the floorboards was a reminder that she was not alone, yet the solitude felt suffocating. In her search for answers, Sarah stumbled upon an old journal at the town library, its pages yellowed and brittle. The entries spoke of a similar melody haunting the town decades ago, a precursor to tragic events that had befallen its residents. The realization hit her like a cold wave. She was not the first to hear it, nor would she be the last. The weight of this knowledge settled heavily on her shoulders, amplifying her growing sense of vulnerability. The journal hinted at a pattern: those who heard the melody were often drawn into its dark embrace, unable to escape its grasp. Sarah's heart sank as she pieced together the implications. The melody was not merely a song, but a harbinger of death itself. As she read the final entries, a shudder ran through her. The writer had described the growing sense of dread, the feeling of being watched, and the eventual disappearance of those who could not resist the song's call. As the days blurred together, Sarah's reality began to fray. Friends became strangers, her home felt like a cage, and the melody played on, relentless and unforgiving. The town, once a haven, transformed into a labyrinth of paranoia. The haunting tune echoed through her thoughts, its chilling notes a constant reminder that she was running out of time. The closer she got to the truth, the more she felt death's icy fingers reaching for her, ready to pull her into the abyss. In her heart, she knew she had to confront the melody, to unravel its mysteries before it consumed her entirely. But as fear and paranoia set in, each moment felt like a countdown, the melody counting down to an inevitable confrontation with fate. The walls of her reality closed in tighter, leaving her with a singular question. Could she escape the haunting song, or would it be the last thing she ever heard? The air was thick with tension as Sarah stood in the heart of the town, the melody swirling around her like a dark mist. It had grown louder, more insistent, reverberating in her bones. Every note felt like a pulse, a heartbeat echoing the dread that clawed at her insides. She could no longer deny the truth. The song was a harbinger of death, and she had been marked as its next victim. With each passing moment, the realization settled heavily upon her, a weight that threatened to crush her spirit. Panic surged through her veins, igniting a desperate urge to escape. She raced through the streets, heart pounding, the melody chasing her like a predator relentless in its pursuit. Shadows loomed large, twisting and warping in the fading light, as if the darkness itself conspired against her. As she turned a corner, she stumbled upon an abandoned church, its once sacred walls now cloaked in neglect. A flicker of hope ignited within her. Perhaps the answer she sought lay within. She pushed open the creaking doors, the sound echoing like a funeral dirge. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and decay, but the haunting melody pulsed stronger, guiding her deeper into the shadows. In the dim light, Sarah found herself drawn to an altar where a figure loomed. It was cloaked in darkness, its presence radiating an otherworldly power. The entity was the source of the melody, a being that thrived on fear and despair. As she gazed into its hollow eyes, a chilling recognition washed over her. This was the embodiment of her nightmares, the face of the death she had tried to evade. "Why have you come, Sarah?" the entity intoned, its voice a haunting echo that reverberated through her very soul. "Did you think you could escape your fate?" "Please," she gasped, her voice trembling. "I don't want to die. I want to live. What do you want from me?" The melody swelled, filling the air with a cacophony of sorrow and longing. "You are a part of this song now, woven into its very fabric. Those who hear it are bound to it, unable to break free. But there is a choice." Terror coursed through her as the entity extended a skeletal hand, the air around it crackling with dark energy. "Embrace the melody, and you shall find peace in its depth. Resist, and you will become another note in its eternal symphony of despair." Heart racing, Sarah felt the weight of the choice bearing down on her. She had witnessed the toll the melody took on her town, the lives it claimed, leaving behind nothing but echoes of sorrow. The thought of surrendering to it sent a wave of nausea through her. No, she would not become another victim. With a roar of defiance, she stepped back, shaking her head. "I refuse to be your pawn. I will fight." The entity's laughter echoed through the empty church, a sound that curdled her blood. The melody crescendoed, a furious storm of sound that enveloped her. But Sarah, fueled by a newfound determination, began to sing a song of defiance, a melody of hope. The clash of their songs reverberated through the air, the entity's dark notes meeting the vibrant chords of her spirit. Light sparked around her, pushing back the shadows that sought to consume her. In that moment, she understood the power of music lay not in its ability to bind, but in its capacity to liberate. As the battle of melodies raged on, Sarah felt the walls of fear begin to crumble. The entity faltered, its form wavering like smoke in the wind. "No, you cannot resist!" it shrieked, but the strength of her song began to drown out the haunting tune. one final surge of energy, Sarah poured every ounce of her spirit into her song, shattering the grip the melody had on her. The church erupted in light, engulfing the entity in a blinding radiance. Its screams echoed through the air as it disintegrated into nothingness, the haunting melody dissolving into silence. Breathless and trembling, Sarah stood alone in the now quiet church, feeling the warmth of sunlight spilling through the broken windows. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the truth remained the melody would always linger, a reminder of the battle she had fought. Yet, she had reclaimed her life, ready to embrace the future with open arms, unshackled from the chains of fear. In the wake of Sarah's harrowing confrontation with the entity, the town bore the scars of her ordeal. Rumors swirled like autumn leaves, each whisper carrying tales of the haunting melody that had gripped Sarah and many others. Some claimed she had vanished into the depths of the unknown, while others insisted she had bravely faced the darkness and emerged transformed. The truth, however, was more complex, and the aftermath rippled through the community like a haunting refrain. For Sarah, the struggle to reconcile her experience became an all-consuming task. Though she had escaped the entity's clutches, the melody still echoed in her mind, a ghostly reminder of the terror she had faced. It lingered like a distant thunder, an ever-present reminder of the shadows that lurked at the edges of her consciousness. Each day felt like a battle as she navigated through the mundane rhythms of life, trying to reclaim the normalcy that had once defined her existence. The once vibrant colors of the town dulled under the weight of collective anxiety. Neighbors who had once exchanged friendly greetings now cast wary glances, their laughter replaced with hushed tones. The children, once carefree, played in silence, their innocence shadowed by the lingering fear of the melody that had woven its way into their lives. The community, once a close-knit tapestry of friendships, began to fray at the seams, each thread pulled tight by the unspoken terror that had gripped them. As days turned into weeks, Sarah found solace in music, the very art that had been both her refuge and her tormentor. She sought to reclaim its beauty, to drown out the echoes of the melody that haunted her. Yet, every note she played felt tinged with sadness, a reminder of the darkness she had faced. The classroom that had once been a sanctuary for her students now felt heavy, their laughter muted as they sensed the change in her. In her quest for healing, Sarah began to share her story with others, hoping to break the silence that had suffocated the town. She organized gatherings at the community center, inviting residents to share their experiences and fears. Slowly, the walls began to crumble, and conversation filled the void of silence. As the townspeople spoke, they found strength in shared vulnerability, recognizing that they were not alone in their struggles. The impact of Sarah's ordeal was profound. Though the melody had once threatened to consume her, it had also sparked a collective awakening. The town, once defined by its idyllic facade, now braced itself against the darkness that had touched its heart. Together, they forged a pact to confront the shadows, to honor those who had been lost to the haunting song, and to reclaim their sense of safety. As the seasons changed, so too did the town. The haunting echoes of the melody began to fade, replaced by a renewed sense of hope. Sarah, though forever marked by her experience, emerged as a beacon of resilience. The struggle became a part of her narrative, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of despair. With each passing day, the melody transformed from a haunting refrain into a powerful reminder of the importance of community, connection, and the courage to face even the darkest of nights. The town, now burdened with the weight of tragedy and resilience, seemed to breathe with a collective sigh of relief. Sarah had emerged from her battle, yet the victory felt bittersweet. The haunting melody, once a siren call of doom, had faded into the shadows. But echoes lingered, like a distant memory refusing to be forgotten. As Sarah ventured into the streets, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the melody had left an imprint on her very soul, an indelible mark that whispered reminders in the silence. Each night, as she lay in bed, the notes would play softly at the edge of her consciousness, teasing her with their ghostly allure. The shadows in her room danced to the rhythm of a song only she could hear, and she feared that the melody was merely biding its time, waiting for the right moment to strike again. In the weeks that followed, whispers of the melody began to circulate among the townsfolk. Stories resurfaced of others who had heard it, some claiming it was a warning, while others insisted it was a curse. As Sarah listened to their tales, a chill crept down her spine. It seemed that the melody had not vanished after all. It had merely shifted, searching for a new canvas upon which to paint its horrors. One evening, while walking home under the pale moonlight, Sarah's heart raced as she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure standing at the edge of the woods. A child, no older than her students, stood there, staring into the depths of the trees. An unsettling sensation gripped her as she recalled the tales of children who had strayed too far, drawn by the haunting song. "Stay away!" she wanted to shout, but the words lodged in her throat. Instead, she watched, helpless, as the child turned their head slightly, as if listening intently for something just out of reach. The melody began to rise once more, curling around the air like tendrils of smoke, and Sarah shuddered, the familiar chill racing down her spine. No matter how hard she tried to convince herself that the nightmare was over, she could feel the darkness creeping back into the corners of her mind. The song had not been silenced, it had merely moved on, seeking new victims to ensnare. And as she glanced back at the child, she understood the melody was still out there, weaving its way through the fabric of the town, waiting for someone to fall under its spell once more. Sarah quickened her pace, the echo of the haunting notes growing fainter but no less menacing. The horror may have receded for now, but she knew deep down that the song would continue to play, silently marking its next target. Would she be able to protect the innocent? Or would the melody find its way back to her, drawing her into its chilling embrace once again? The answers loomed just out of sight, lurking in the shadows, as the haunting refrain echoed on, relentless and forever unyielding.